Exodus, what does it tell us about God? Why is it important? The book of Exodus is a cornerstone of the Bible, a narrative packed with profound lessons about God's character, his relationship with humanity, and the foundations of faith. It's more than a historical account of Israel's liberation from Egypt. It's a divine blueprint revealing who God is and why his actions matter. God as a deliverer. Exodus begins with the Israelites in bondage, enslaved by Pharaoh. Their cries for help ascend to heaven, and God responds, demonstrating his role as a deliverer. In Exodus 3, 7 or 8, God tells Moses, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them." This passage underscores a fundamental truth. God is not distant or indifferent. He is intimately aware of his people's pain and actively intervenes to bring freedom. The liberation of the Israelites is a vivid testament to God's power and his commitment to justice. The power of God's name. When Moses asks for God's name, the response is both profound and mysterious. "I am who I am," Exodus 3:14. This declaration revealed as eternal, self-existent, and unchanging. Unlike the Egyptian gods whose power was limited and tied to specific domains, Yahweh is sovereign over all creation. This name also conveys his personal relationship with humanity. By revealing his name, God invites his people into a deeper understanding of who he is, a God who is both transcendent and present. The 10 plagues, God's sovereignty over creation. The dramatic series of 10 plagues in Exodus 7-12 is not just a display of divine power, but a calculated dismantling of Egypt's pantheon. Each plague targets specific deities that the Egyptians worshipped. Turning the Nile to blood challenged Hapi, the god of the Nile. The plague of darkness undermined Ra, the sun god. These acts highlight God's supremacy over all false gods, demonstrating that he alone is the true and living God. The plagues also served to soften Pharaoh's hardened heart, revealing that even the mightiest rulers are subject to God's authority. The Passover, a covenant of redemption. The institution of the Passover in Exodus 12 is a pivotal moment, rich in symbolism. The blood of a spotless lamb applied to the doorposts spared the Israelites from the angel of death, foreshadowing the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus Christ. This event illustrates God's provision and mercy. It's a powerful reminder that salvation comes not through human effort, but through faith and obedience to God's instructions. Passover became an enduring symbol of God's covenant and a celebration of his faithfulness. God as lawgiver and guide. After the Exodus, God leads his people to Mount Sinai, where he establishes a covenant with them and gives the 10 Commandments. These laws are not arbitrary rules, but a framework for living in a way that reflects God's holiness and justice. The giving of the law reveals God's desire for relationship and order. He sets apart the Israelites as his chosen people, calling them to be a light to the nations. Through the covenant, God shows that his love is not conditional, but comes with an expectation of faithful response. The tabernacle, God's presence among his people. The instructions for building the tabernacle in Exodus 25-40 emphasize God's longing to dwell with his people. The tabernacle is a tangible representation of God's presence, a sacred space where heaven and earth intersect. This aspect of Exodus demonstrates that God is not content to remain distant. He chooses to journey alongside his people, guiding them with a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. Why is Exodus important? Exodus is essential because it establishes the foundation of God's covenant relationship with his people. It teaches us about his justice, mercy, and faithfulness. Through the story of liberation, we see God's concern for the oppressed and his power to deliver. Moreover, Exodus points forward to the New Testament, where themes of redemption, sacrifice, and covenant find their ultimate fulfillment in Jesus Christ. For believers, the lessons of Exodus are timeless, reminding us that God is a deliverer, a guide, and a provider. Ultimately, Exodus is a story of hope. It assures us that no matter how dire our circumstances, God hears our cries, intervenes in our struggles, and leads us toward freedom and life abundant in him.